With the release of the Dash Armory deck, we have a new boogeyman in the format. Dio looks to be the deck to beat, which begs the question, how do you beat this monster? My name is Pheano, and in this video, I'm going to be explaining the cards and strategies you can use to get an edge against Dash IO. Before getting into it though, if you want to know more about the upgrades that Dash got, you can check out the video over here where I bring Mara Ferris onto the channel to do a deep dive on the hero. First, let's understand the enemy. Dash IO is a hyper aggro deck that can output some of the best numbers in the game. Between boom grenades, maximum velocity, high octane, and cerebellum processor, basically no deck can keep up with Dash in a straight up race. She has a core weakness though. The trade-off for all of this damage is she has to burn through her deck by boosting. Dash IO games typically only take like 8 to 10 turns. After that, she runs out of cards and the deck is fatigued. So, if you can't beat him, fatigue him. When you sit down against a Dash IO, you need to identify your role in the matchup. Can you actually play a proactive game into the Dash where reducing their life to 0 is your win condition, not reducing their deck size to 0? If you can, then play your core normal strategy. Though you might want to pick some spots throughout the game where you go between blocking out Dash's big turns and pushing on her setup turns, depending on how your deck is structured. If you are going to do this, consider arsenaling cards that let you push really hard on her setup turns, like Go Again attacks, for instance, or your power cards. Odds are, though, the answer is no, you can't race her, since most decks can't keep up with her output and trade blows with her. If that's the case, you should look to block her out and just fatigue her. So long as you have a single point of life at the end of the game and any way to kill her, like with a weapon, this is a valid win condition. Now let's dive into how to fatigue Dash and some of the tech cards that you can use to gain an edge against her. Of course, if we're trying to fatigue her, we want to block as much damage as possible. But some leak damage is fine, as it's unlikely you're going to be able to block every single point of damage she throws at you. You don't win the game by still having 40 life. You win by not having 0 life and still being able to kill her afterwards. So a few points of leak is perfectly fine. The turns you really want to fight over taking any damage though is when she has a boom grenade in play. Especially if she's cranked them, since if you're able to stop it from connecting this turn, it's gonna go away at the start of her next turn. If she didn't crank the boom grenades though, it means that you're gonna have to deal with it for 2 full rounds, so you might want to consider if you're gonna even be able to fight over it for 2 straight turns. Knowing when it's a lost cause is an important factor in this matchup, and we're going to get back into that later on in the video. Having a lot of armor is a massive boon to being able to block out the boom grenade rounds, so you're going to be trying to hold off on using it until those specific turns. Try to use your cards to block before using your armor though, since you're going to get more cards to block with in the future, but you're not going to be able to ever get back your armor. Armor is great for also covering up those awkward breakpoints that Dash will present to you over the course of the game, where she's going to try leaking damage through to get her boom grenades to connect. And 4 blocks, specifically defense reactions, are also your best friend for covering up these breakpoints. I'm frequently willing to take some damage to get a defense reaction set, so I can block with it on one of the boom grenade rounds. 4 damage now versus 4 damage later, it's the same thing, but fighting over the boom grenade is way more important. Defense reactions also have the added benefit of letting you cover up a surprise boom grenade off the top of the deck. No need to play the guessing game on if they have that on top or not if you just have a defense reaction set. Balance of Justice and Hold the Line are 2 standout cards against Dash, as they punish her for drawing extra cards on her turn trying to go even bigger. Dash is heavily incentivized to play high octane when she has a cerebellum processor in play, and when that happens you can get value out of these. She can try to play around these by spreading out the card draw over different turns, but then they aren't doing one of the most powerful things in their deck, and I think you're okay with that. So the level 1 of the matchup is Dash is going to run you over. The level 2 of the match is you're going to block her out and try to fatigue her. So if the Dash knows that you're trying to fatigue her, she'll usually take setup turns, where she puts items in play so she can have an explosive next turn. And when this happens, you won't have a chance to block. So the level 4, you gotta punish her for leaving you with cards and taking a setup turn. Make her regret leaving you with cards in hand that you wanted to block with to begin with. Disruptive Attacks are a great starting point, since most of these cards are just cards that you wanted to play in other matchups anyways. Command and Conquer, Erase Face, Weakest Link, all standout disruptive attacks that hit multiple decks in the metagame, and Some decks, you know, if you're already playing these, you can also consider Pummel, another great disruptive effect that pairs well with these. The disruptive attacks will either cause her to lose out value next turn, making it easier to block out in the next round, or force her to block, giving you breathing room to form more disruption at the next turn. Now, I only mentioned generic disruption here, but there's plenty of disruption in the class and talent card pool. To name a few: Guardian, Assassin, Ranger, Runeblade, Brute, Earth, and currently not legal right now, but in the future, if it ever comes back and Dash is still in the meta, Ice. But why even give her the option to block when you can just play Warmongers? This might be the single best Warmongers metagame ever. Not only are there a ton of Runeblades in the meta, but Dash is really soft to this card. She's gonna have to pick between either attacking you or playing and activating items. A big one is trying to line up your Warmongers with their Cerebellum processor, denying them a turn of getting card draw off of it. While we're on non-interactive things that you can do, life gain and establishing ward. These can be a great punish to buffer your life and playing towards your don't die and fatigue them game plan. But be aware, too much life gain can be a liability, since cards like Sigil of Solace and Count Your Blessings don't block, which can be big punishes when you need to block out a boom grenade round. And also, the game isn't going to go long enough for you to get value out of Count Your Blessings. You're going to die before then if you're trying to play that minigame with them. Item destruction is omega cringe for Dash to deal with. Brute has access to Smashing Performance and Arg Smash, which just, oh my god, are backbreaking. But if you're not playing Brute, there is access to Smashing Good Time at generic, so anyone can play this card. Now let's go over some of the pitfalls that you could fall into and counterplay to be aware of from the Dash side. You gotta know when to hold the L on the boom grenade and just let it hit. I mentioned this earlier in the video how you should know when to give up on defending against a boom grenade. Think about how much you can actually defend and try to map out realistically how much the Dash is gonna attack you with this turn. If it's obvious you were never going to prevent the boom grenade from going off, then committing to stopping it from happening can cause you to lose the game. If you give up all of your armor trying to stop it and then fail anyways, next time you're not going to have all the armor in play to fight over the boom grenade. So try to be conservative with your armor when possible and find the right spots to use it. Now, here are some ways that the Dash player will try to force through their boom grenades. Dominate from Convention Amplifier, the myriad of boost cards that say can't be defended by armor, or just going too wide with breakpoints, and of course the big one, Max V. And they might try to combine multiple of these where they play a Max V with Dominate from the Convention Amplifier and Goliath Gauntlet. Good luck stopping 12 Dominate. A lot of times you can know when the Max V is coming though. Pay attention to when they play a Twin Drive. If they boost it twice and they're not on a high octane round, it's pretty obvious there's a Max V coming. Now, I haven't seen this in quite a while, but pay attention to if the Dash is trying to set up a loop for the end of the game. Now, there's some variations of this loop, but the basic one involves playing a Scrap Harvester, banishing a backup protocol, and then putting a counter on Prismatic Lens. Then you use the Prismatic Lens to put the banished backup protocol back on top of your deck, and then playing it with your hero power. And then you can use that backup protocol to put the Scrap Harvester back in your hand to do this all over again. It's a self-contained loop. It's basically build your own Eclipse with way more steps. If you see the Dash IO trying to do this, or you see these cards just are in their list and they've been pitching them, you gotta be aware that this is coming. So you're gonna need to either kill them before they counter fatigue you, or have some way to break the loop at the end of the game. Now, lastly, if you can't beat them, join them. Just play Dash IO yourself and find an edge in the mirror. A really great way to find an edge is by playing Item Destruction and Steam Counter Removal. You got TikTok Clock, System Failure, Spring a Leak, Smash and Grab, technically Demolition Protocol, but you'd have to play Evos to do that one. Figured I'd at least mention it. Someone will cook out there with it. Honestly though, TikTok Clock is probably enough reason to make me not want to play Dash. I not really interested in the mirrors where it's, oh man, you know, they got their TikTok before I got my TikTok and I just lost. I cannot stress enough that Dash IO is going to be the queen of the format. You need to either be playing her or play something that can beat her. Make sure you have a plan for how to beat her unless you want to get stomped. Do you think Dash's power level is okay, or do you think she's too strong? What strategy are you going to be using to beat Dash IO this format? And let me know if you think I missed any ways to beat her in the comments below. I'm sure I didn't cover everything. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe. And if you got value out of this video, please consider checking out the Patreon. It helps support more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you.